Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something a bit tricky, a real linguistic puzzle that honestly affects almost anyone looking for clarity and wellness.
Yeah,
We're diving into some source material that just hits you right away with these two, well, paradoxical statements. Yoga is not yoga, and meditation is not meditation.
right. And it sounds like wordplay, doesn't it? But we promise this is actually super important for getting clear.
Like what? Are you messing with me?
But the original precision, the specific meaning of these terms, it's kind of gotten lost. They're used so broadly now.
Oh, okay.
So when we say deep dive today, what we really mean is offering you, the listener, a shortcut to understanding the intention behind different practices.
So if you're trying to figure out, which way to go for your own goals, maybe it's health, maybe focus, maybe something deeper, we need to sort out these terms first.
We really do. The sources are clear that this confusion isn't helpful.
And this whole idea, this mission, it actually comes from the author Sundar Rajan, and he called it the clarity challenge.
Yes.
Acknowledging that all this information overload around wellness terms, it can actually work against clarity. We need boundaries, not just, bigger buckets.
Exactly. Boundaries help define purpose. So let's tackle that first one. Unpacking the yoga paradox.
Okay, let's get right into it. When most people today talk about doing yoga, what are they actually talking about?
Almost always they mean the physical practice, the one called hatha yoga.
Right, the poses and breathing.
That's it. That's the mainstream understanding you see everywhere, studios, gyms. It's about asanas, the postures, and specific breathing techniques. The focus is really on physical alignment, building strength, flexibility.
That's the yoga most of us recognize.
Yeah.
The stretching, the physical benefits. But the sources we looked at are really insistent that this hatha practice isn't the same as the, let's say, capital Y yoga.
And that's the crucial distinction. Hatha yoga, while valuable, has a fundamentally different purpose compared to traditions like Ashtanga yoga or, specifically, Patanjali yoga.
How so?
Well, hatha makes the body the main focus, but these older, deeper traditions, they have a completely different center of gravity.
Which is meditation, right? The sources emphasize that Patanjali yoga is profoundly medication-centric.
Absolutely.
Okay, but here's a question then, based on the material. If Patanjali's system, the foundation for a lot of this, is ultimately about liberating the mind, why even include physical postures? Why bother with the body?
That's a great question. It gets right to the heart of it. In Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga, the physical stuff, asanas and pranayama or breathing control, they're actually just steps 3 and 4.
Oh, only steps 3 and 4.
Yeah, they're preparatory. Think about it. The body is a huge potential distraction if it's uncomfortable or weak or sick. You can't easily meditate if your back is screaming, right?
Okay, that makes sense. So the body is like the vehicle you need to maintain, but it's not the final stop.
Precisely. If your goal is true Patanjali yoga, the physical work is really just to make sure you can sit still for a long, long time without fidgeting or pain distracting you.
Wow, okay.
It's about removing that physical static, that friction, so you can actually do the heavier lifting, which is the later limbs. Pratyahara, sense withdrawal, dharana, concentration, dhyana, meditation, and ultimately samadhi, absorption.
So using the same word yoga for both the physical prep and that ultimate meditative goal, it's just too broad. It loses the distinction.
It really does. It covers both the warm-up and the main event, you could say.
Like that analogy we talked about earlier, hatha is maybe the reliable family car, gets you around comfortably day to day, but Patanjali yoga is more like a specialized vehicle, maybe a race car, built for a very specific, intense journey towards self-realization.
That's a good way to put it. Both are cars, technically, but their design reflects a totally different purpose.
Right.
And this lack of clarity around yoga, it spills directly into the second paradox, which is maybe even more confusing for people today. Meditation is not meditation.
Yes. Okay, this feels really relevant, especially now with, meditation apps everywhere, all sorts of guided practices online. The sources use this great visual, like putting meditation on a scale.
Yeah, balancing two very different approaches. And the key differentiator, it's all about intention.
Intention.
Intention is everything here.
Yeah.
So, on one side of that scale, you've got what we can broadly call secular methods.
And that covers a lot of ground in modern practice, doesn't it?
It really does. We're talking walking meditation, general mindfulness exercises, most of the stuff you find on commercial meditation apps.
The popular stuff?
Exactly. And the sources are really clear. These methods are wonderful. They absolutely deliver concrete, practical results that can significantly improve your daily life.
Okay, so if the intention is improving daily life, What specific results are we talking about? What are these secular methods aiming for?
They're generally focused on things you can maybe even measure, like reducing stress hormones, improving your ability to focus, getting better at managing emotions, calming the nervous system's stress response.
Health and stress relief, basically.
That's the core function, yes, health and stress relief. It's about balance, overall well-being, making you function better, be less reactive, maybe less anxious, optimizing the life you already have.
Which sounds great. And honestly, that's probably the goal for many people when they start meditating.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that goal at all.
But now we need to look at the other side of the scale, the spiritual methods. What are these and how are they fundamentally different from just, optimizing mental health?
Okay, so these methods, they tend to draw directly from older, often prescriptive texts. The source material specifically mentions chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita, for instance, and parts of the Upanishads.
Ancient texts.
Right. And these practices define a path that's aiming for something fundamentally different than just feeling better day to day.
So not just aiming for less anxiety, but something much bigger.
Much bigger, or perhaps much higher, depending on your perspective. These spiritual methods typically involve that progression we touched on earlier from Patanjali, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi.
Right, the later ones.
Yeah, and we need to unpack those a bit so they don't just sound like, fancy jargon. Their progression is key.
Okay, let's break that down, because this seems like where the real rigorous practice comes in.
It is. Dharana comes first. That's concentration. It's the ability to actually hold your mind on one single point or object without it constantly wandering off.
Training the monkey mind, as they say.
Pretty much. You have to train it to stay before you can really use it effectively. Then after Dharana comes Dhyana,
which is often just translated as meditation.
It is, but in this specific context, it means something more intense. It's a continuous, unbroken flow of that concentration. Imagine holding a magnifying glass perfectly still on one spot until it starts to burn. That sustained, unwavering focus is closer to Dhyan.
Wow, okay. That's a powerful image. Not just brief moments of focus, but sustained flow in the final stage.
Samadhi, which is usually translated as absorption or meditative union, where the sense of a separate meditator begins to dissolve into the object of meditation. Now, the core goal of this whole system, according to these texts, isn't just achieving peace of mind or lowering stress. The sources strongly emphasize this is the vehicle for spiritual transformation.
Transformation, not just improvement.
Exactly. The ultimate aim is often described as a transformation of identity itself, moving beyond the everyday sense of being a separate individual ego.
Okay, but here's where I want to push back a little, based on real-world experience. If someone uses a secular mindfulness app, say, and it helps them overcome debilitating anxiety and totally rebuild their life, isn't that a profound transformation? How do the spiritual texts justify such a sharp divide?
That's a really important question, and the answer seems to lie in the scope of the transformation being aimed at. The sources aren't really denying the value, even the transformative power of secular practice for mental health. They just categorize its purpose differently.
How so?
Secular practices are generally aimed at fixing problems within your current sense of self, making you, as you currently perceive yourself, happier, healthier, more functional, less burdened by anxiety or stress.
Right, optimizing the current self.
Precisely. Spiritual dhyana, on the other hand, as laid out in texts like the Gita, is aimed at the transcendence of that very self. It's structured to investigate the fundamental nature of existence, consciousness, reality, not primarily to make your daily life smoother. It uses the mind, focused single-pointedly, like that magnifying glass, toward a goal that ultimately involves questioning or moving beyond the usual framework of me and my problems. That's the fundamental difference in purpose or destination.
So it's like the difference between tuning up your car for a smoother ride around town versus fundamentally rebuilding the car to attempt interstellar travel. Both involve working on the car, but the end goal is completely different.
That's a very apt analogy.
Yes.
And realizing this, that not all meditation is aiming for the same thing, that's probably the most valuable takeaway from this deep dive.
Yeah.
Knowing that mindfulness of your breath, for example, is incredibly effective for cultivating calmness and better health. But traditional dhyana is structured specifically as a tool for that deeper, potentially identity-shifting transformation.
Okay. So this really brings us back to the learner, to you listening. That clarity challenge from Sundar Rajan is ultimately about aligning your tools with your goals, your means with your ends.
Absolutely.
If you're using an app that promises, say, better focus or less stress, that's fantastic. But you probably shouldn't expect it also to deliver deep spiritual insight just because it uses the word meditation.
Mm.
You need to be clear about your own intention first.
That really is the crux of it, knowing the difference, understanding the physical focus of hatha versus the meditation-centric path of Patanjali Yoga, or knowing the difference between secular mindfulness for well-being and spiritual dhyana aiming for transformation. It lets you choose the right vehicle for where you want to go.
Right. If your goal is better health, feeling calmer, more balanced day to day, the secular methods are proven and, frankly, wonderful tools.
Absolutely. But if your goal involves that deeper transformation, you
Yeah.
need to understand the kind of commitment and the specific structure of practice outlined in those classical spiritual paths. It's a different undertaking.
This has definitely added that layer of nuance those initial paradoxical statements needed. Yoga is not yoga. Meditation is not meditation.
Hmm.
It sounds confusing, but the distinction, physical practice versus meditative path or stress relief versus spiritual transformation, is actually quite simple but critical for setting your goals.
It really is. Which brings us to a final thought, something practical for you to consider.
Right.
We've established that secular methods are great for balance and well-being, and spiritual methods are geared towards transformation. So how might really internalizing this difference change the way you approach things going forward?
How so?
Well, how might it inform the way you choose a new practice or evaluate a meditation app or even select a teacher or instructor? Are the methods they're offering, the tools, the language they use, the definitions they provide, are they genuinely aligned with the highest aims you hold for yourself?
Checking that alignment between the tool and the goal.
Exactly. Making sure the memes truly serve the end you desire. That self-awareness, that alignment, maybe that's the real practice.